Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode. We're working on Unit 6, Lessons 1 and 2. Our topic is different environments. I will ask you a question. What do you think an environment is? Is it a place? Is it a time? What does it have to do? Does it have to do with a habitat maybe? Let's get started and find out more information. You're going to identify gist or main ideas in short listening texts. You will describe and compare feelings of people, places, actions, objects, events, and you will establish relationships. We will write an opinion piece and the comparison of two objects. We will listen to understand a news report. We will speak by comparing different things, and we will focus on our new vocabulary words: air pollution, drought, flood, rubbish, water pollution, polluted, and of course, green. As for language, we're going to be working on the grammar skill of comparative adjectives. Find these things in the photos and you can sit with a partner and see who finishes first. So the words in the word box are air pollution, drought, flood, rubbish, and water pollution. So air pollution, of course, has to do with the air. So we might try to find a picture of smoke in the air. As for drought, drought is basically not having rain most of the year. How would the soil look like if there is a drought? Would we have plants, trees, or would they be dying? As for flood, of course, flooding is when we have excess water from the sea level and it rises to cover up homes, to cover up cars, to cover up anything that is in the area. As for rubbish, is basically anything related to waste that is left from using things at home or in an office or even in a company or a school. Now, last word in the word box is water pollution. Of course, the word water is very simple. Pollution is anything that ruins or makes that water quite dirty. So picture 1 is rubbish. Picture 2 is flooding or flood. Picture 3 is air pollution. Picture 4 is the drought. And 5 is water pollution. Good job, guys. Now I'd like you to look through the unit. What is happening to Mount Kilimanjaro? Once you're done, you will research one way in which people in Egypt are trying to help the environment. How do you think people are helping the environment? Of course, we will find out that warmer weather is melting the ice on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and this is of course causing global warming. If you're not sure what global warming is, you can research it. Now we're going to listen to 2 reports on a radio news program for students. Which of the photos in the previous slide on page 54 are they talking about? So try to guess what they're talking about in terms of the previous page. Let's listen together.
Hello, this is Jumana reporting for Student Radio in Cairo. Recently, volunteers who were working to clean a canal say they are finding more rubbish in the water. They say the canal is dirtier and more polluted than ever before. They are warning people who live in the city to be more careful about where they put their rubbish to try to help the canal become cleaner. This is Karim reporting from Alexandria for Student FM. Today, our city started using new electric buses. The buses will mean there is less air pollution in the city. So, they are greener and they are also cheaper to run. I spoke to some bus users who said the new buses were quieter than the old buses, and also the seats were more comfortable.
Now, which of the photos on the previous slide are they talking about? You can go back, take a look, and write your answers down. Of course, they're talking about photo 1, which is rubbish, photo 3, which is air pollution, and photo 5, which is water pollution. Now you can rewind and listen one more time in order to circle the correct words in each question. Let's start with number 1. The volunteers are finding more rubbish than before. Number 2, they want the schools or people who live in the city to help. What do you think? Do they want the schools or the people in the city to help? Of course, they want people who live in the city to help. Number 3, Alexandria has new electric trains or buses. The answer is buses. Good job, guys. Let's move on to number 4. People hope there will be less air or less water pollution in the city. Of course, that is less air pollution. Of course, the answer is less air pollution. Now we're going to move to our language section. We will complete the sentences with the adjectives in the box to make them comparative. We use comparative adjectives to talk about or compare two things together. So let's look at the grammar box before we start. We have short adjectives and we have long adjectives. If we look at the short adjectives, we will read words like quiet, hot, dry, or bad. So these are short in the number of letters. Let's change quiet to a comparative adjective. It will be quieter. So I can compare two things by saying, my home is quieter than my school. And if we look at the long adjectives such as careful, beautiful, relaxing, and comfortable, we should use more before the adjective. And we do not add ER at the end. So let's look at the example. If I want to say that someone is more careful than someone else, I will say Farida is more careful than her mother. Here we're comparing Farida to her mother. So we cannot say carefuler. We will say more careful. But we have some adjectives that are not following the same rule, such as dry, ending with Y. Therefore, we change the Y into an I. And for bad, it is an irregular adjective, so it turns to worse. Instead of saying badder, we will say it is worse than. You can say the weather this year is worse than last year. Now it's time to complete exercise 3. We have words like clean, comfortable, green, and polluted is used for us. Let's read it together. The canal is more polluted than it was before. Remember that the word polluted here is a long adjective. Therefore, we will use more with polluted. Number 2, the volunteers want to make the canal. What do you think? What do they want to do to the canal? Of course, cleaner. So clean is a short adjective, so we will add ER at the end. The volunteers want to make the canal cleaner. Number 3, the electric buses in Alexandria cause less air pollution, so they are blank than the old buses. They are blank than the old buses. Of course, here we will use greener because green means good for the environment. So we can describe the electric buses as greener than the old buses or more environmentally friendly. Number 4, people think that the seats on the new buses are blank than the old buses. Of course, the answer is more comfortable. Why did we use more? Because comfortable is a long adjective. Good job, guys. Now we will move to our speaking section. Get ready to practice speaking. Work in pairs with a partner at home or on the phone with a friend maybe, and compare the following. Use the adjectives in the phone or your own ideas. Attractive, comfortable, green, large, noisy, and relaxing. So what are we going to do here? We will use those adjectives with each words in each question to come up with our own sentences. Here are suggested ideas, but you must create your own. The city is more interesting than the countryside. The countryside is more attractive than the city. Number 3. Africa is hotter and larger than Europe. Reading is more relaxing than watching TV. Watching TV is more interesting than reading. So you can create your own examples and practice speaking with a friend or a family member. Now we will go on to lesson 2. Find a partner and ask, what do you know about climate change? How is it changing the planet? So let's ask ourselves, what is the difference between climate and weather? Climate is the environmental change over a long period of time, whereas weather is instant or in the current time. So I can ask you about the weather today and you can tell me it is rainy today. But if I ask about the climate, you will talk about how the climate changed over years or months. Let's continue. So we will ask our pair, what do you know about climate change? How is it changing the planet? Now, let's read the presentation. Does it talk about the problems you discussed together with your partner? Yes or no? A changing world. Today's presentation is about climate change. This means our planet is changing. Here are 2 places that are different now. Australia. In the line graph, the x-axis shows the year and the y-axis shows the change in temperature. So the axis on the left side shows the temperature in degrees Celsius, whereas the y-axis in the bottom of the first graph shows the year. You can see that the climate in Australia is becoming hotter and drier. More droughts mean worse fires than ever before. Climate change means Australia is a more dangerous place to live. I'd like you to look up the fires that started in Australia and read about the reasons they have started. Now, let's move on to Mount Kilimanjaro. This bar chart shows that warmer and drier weather is melting the ice on top of Africa's highest mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro. You can see that the area of ice is much smaller than 140 years ago. The good news is that the ice is not melting as fast as before. However, the ice is continuing to get smaller. So if we look at the bar graph on the right-hand side below, if we look at the left-hand side, we'll see the area in kilometers square. And if we look below, we will see the years starting from 1880 to 2018. And we see how the ice is melting on top of Africa's highest mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, and how this is going to affect the world. Now, let's answer question 2. Does it talk about the problem you discussed in exercise 1? Well, the problems in Australia are that the weather is getting hotter and drier, and this is causing more fires. As for Mount Kilimanjaro, the weather is getting warmer and drier, so the ice is melting. Now we're going to find out if the following statements are true or false. You can reread the presentation one more time and look carefully at the graphs to be able to answer. Number 1 is done for us. Let's read it together. Remember, if a sentence is false, you must correct it. Number 1, 2010 was the hottest year in Australia. Of course, this is false. It was in 2019. Number 2, Drier weather causes bad fires in Australia. Of course, that is true. Good job, guys. Number 3, climate change means fewer people live in Australia. Of course, this is false. It does not say this in the text. Number 4, there is less rain around Mount Kilimanjaro than before. This is true. Very good, guys. Number 5, 140 years ago, there was more ice on the mountain. This is true, definitely. Number 6, the ice on Mount Kilimanjaro is melting faster these days. Of course, this is false. It is not melting as fast, but it is melting slowly. Now we're going to jump to our language section. Let's look at the grammar box and then start answering. We're going to use not as plus adjective plus as. Use as blank to talk about things being the same. So we can say, I am as cute as my mother, or you can say, I am as sweet as honey, or you can say, droughts are as serious as floods. So this is to show a comparison or showing that two people, two things, or two ideas or two places are similar. That's how we use as blank. So you can use any adjective in the middle between as and as. So let's start with number 1. So what are we going to do in exercise 4? We will complete the sentences with as blank and the words in brackets. So we're going to use the words in brackets to complete the sentences. Number 1 is done for us. Mount Kenya is not as high as Mount Kilimanjaro. Number 2, I think that air pollution is as serious as water pollution. Number 3, Europe is not as dry as Australia. Number 4, the pollution in the countryside is not as bad as the pollution in the cities. Number 5, recycling is as important as using electricity for the environment. So remember, we use as blank to compare two things and show that they are similar. Now let's move on to our project. We're going to work in groups to prepare a presentation about a graph. So you must use a source such as the internet or a book to find a line graph or bar chart that shows information about the climate in a country or a city. So choose any country or city you like to find information about its climate. Use the information to prepare a presentation to your class or even your family members. Think about the following. What do the x-axis and the y-axis show? So you must label the x-axis, which is horizontal, and the y-axis, which is vertical, and then write what comparisons and conclusions you can make. Try to find as many photos or pictures to go with your presentation and use some of the following expressions. So you can present by saying, today's presentation is about climate in India, for example. In this line graph, you will see how climate changed in India since the year 1986 to the year 2021. This bar chart shows that the climate has, and then state how the climate changed over those years. Present the project to the class or to your family members. Everyone in the group should speak. So you can even record your project as a video and share it with anyone you want in your family through internet. That's a wrap. You guys did a great job. This was Ms. Sarah Basuni. Have a wonderful day. Bye.